This is later, guys. He's giving you a little bitty kitty cuteness at the beginning of the video. You know people love cat videos. He's over there playing with a little squeaky bird toy and everything. He had popped it up in the air, and now he is just chilling with it. So I actually had started doing this video, but I mistakenly hit the arrow instead of, hit the stop button instead of flipping it back around, because the flip the camera is right above the stop button. So whatevs. Anywho's, this video is about the 7-year cycles, the cycle of Saturn, tree of life, and how that also is fits in correlation to the chakras, our 7 houses. And I really want to jump into it because it's quite a bit of information, so I want to make sure that I get through it, and I give you guys some really beneficial information to help you, not only with building yourselves, but for people who have children. This can also help you with your parenting, so you have a better idea of what to expect at particular ages with your children, and you know what they're dealing with, the things that our parents didn't know when we were growing up, okay? And of course, before I get started, I want to send all you guys out into the ether. Peace, blessings, love, and abundance, my loves. All right? So I'm going to jump into it. Saturn is where we're going to start, the cycle of Saturn. So Saturn's complete cycle around the sun takes 29.4 years. Hard aspects of transitioning Saturn to its place in your birth chart, squares and oppositions, take place each 7 years. So what that basically means is, we know that even though it takes Saturn 29.4 years to orbit, to complete one orbit around the sun, and which means go through all of the different zodiacs. And during that 29.4 years, every 7 years, Saturn has some type of aspect, square, opposition, which is going to contribute to our growth, basically. Okay, so there'll be certain lessons and things that we should have learned after that 7-year cycle, that Saturn has taught us through whatever experiences that we went through during that time. All right, and each aspect carries its own vibration. So like a specific tune that it's sending out vibratory to us, to our chakras. And you can call it like it's basically trying to fine tune our heart in a particular way so that we can make certain changes, for the better. So instead of making the same decisions and repeating lessons, Saturn is urging us to, be more disciplined and change something in order to receive a different outcome or a better outcome, and to grow. All right. Now, when the same aspect repeats at a later age, things from the earlier age can reappear. Okay, so let's say that at the age of 7, that's when Saturn first came into aspect, or came into this 7-year cycle, and we were supposed to learn a lesson. If we didn't learn that lesson, when Saturn reappears 7 years later at the age of 14, then we would actually be repeating that same thing. So it will reappear again. Maybe it will be in a different context, and meaning that it could come from a different person or a different situation, but it's the same theme. All right. Okay. Each 7-year period ends with a new phase of maturing and taking stock of our lives. Saturn represents wisdom gained from experience, basically. That is what Saturn is here to teach us, to gain more wisdom through everything we go through. That's why however you look at something, it's always best to look at it as a lesson or something that you are supposed to gain from it, not something that is bad or evil, like the rap that people give Saturn. Okay, so at the stages of life, we experience a 7-year itch to make more of ourselves and our contribution to the world. So every 7 years, we should have went through certain experiences in order for us to build inward, in order for it to spread outward and be a blessing or blissing contribution to others. So it should spill over to others. Whatever we fix in ourselves, it is going to be a light that spreads to the world, basically. Now, The 7-year phases between Saturn aspects to natal Saturn are the normal stress periods of living and growing, which psychologists call normative crises. For example, adolescence turmoil at 14, which is that whole thing of going into puberty. So you kind of start to feel yourself. It's like, you know, you're still wet behind the ears, as the old folks say. Yet you still have a bit of immaturity because you still haven't had enough life experience to really be an adult. You're still technically in your childhood stage. You're just going through puberty at that time. So you're pretty much kind of like in a battle. Like you want to be considered, you want to kind of claim your independence, yet you're still under your parents' roof type of thing, right? Or moving out on your own at the age of 21. In America, you're considered to be legally an adult at the age of 21. So now you can buy alcohol. Woohoo! Whoopee, you know. While 21 is popularly considered our coming of age, I can't tell you why that word is a tongue twister right now. Considered our coming of age, in reality, it's just an entry-level position into adulthood. So you can kind of just look at that parallel to going out into the workforce. So at 21, you might get a full-time job or start your career, whatever, but you start at entry level because you're still training to be an adult. You haven't went through enough life experience in order truly to be considered an adult. You've lived most of your life as a child, most of this life as a child, I should say, not your life, this life in this vehicle as a child. And so you can't really be considered an adult if 20 of your years have been under the adolescent type of deal. Even though teenage ends at 19, 20 would be, to me, like when you're supposedly starting to get into adulthood, like young adulthood. So you've only had 2 years of experience being a so-called adult, you know? So to be saying that that's an adult at 21, I honestly have never really gotten that. I always knew that was kind of stupid because that just goes to show how this dimension is so material, physical driven, because we look at the body of something, that physical body, and we think that dictates the mind. Absolutely. How can it when you haven't had life experience enough life experience as an adult, being in the adult body? It's like when you start driving a car. You just got your learner's permit. So who's gonna let you just go and drive from Georgia to California just because you got a learner's permit? No, nobody's gonna be like, in their right mind, gonna be like, go ahead and just drive a car, you know, for that across country. No, it takes driving experience. The more you drive, the better you get at it. So the more you drive this body, this vehicle, the better you get at utilizing it. Duh. Okay. Excuse me, guys. I just had to say that because we really set our children up for failure when we act like they're supposed to know it all at the age of 21. Did you know it all at the age of 21? Hell fucking no. So do not put on a child, even though they're 21 and they're not technically in a child's body. Do not put on them that they're supposed to know it all and be able to just go out there and get their own place and do all this. And I'm not saying that means that your child's supposed to live with you forever. However, if you haven't prepared them, like showing them how to pay bills, because you know they don't teach them that in school. They don't teach them how to balance things and balance their budget and okay, this is what your rent would be. If you made this much, this is how much your rent costs. These are the utilities that you would have to pay. Well, how many parents sit their children, especially in the melanated suits? How many of you are how many of you were sat down by your parents and they broke down how everything works and showed you their own bills and said, look, this is what my check looks like. These are the bills I have to pay. In order for me to be able to pay these bills, this is the percentage. Like if they had a pie, a complete circle, this is the percentage that goes towards bills. This is the percentage that goes towards food. This is the percentage that goes towards the things that I want to do. This is the percentage that goes towards you guys. You see what I'm saying? So then you want to tell a 21-year-old they supposed to have it figured out. Well, fuck, did you have it figured out when you got out of your parents' household? Hell the fuck no. Okay? So we really need to get ourselves together and get off our high horses and stop treating our children like and Thank you. That is because the melanated suits, we treat our children like they are fucking adults when they're children. We let them do certain things that really not conducive to living a child's life. We want to put on them like way more than what should be put on them, like they're supposed to be man of the house or have these types of responsibilities when they are 8 and 9 years old, and then they're over here like watching their siblings and stuff, and like they're, you know, by themselves because you got to go to work. And this is not to knock anybody and judge anybody, to be honest and say that, you know, because I get that people have different circumstances and situations that you're going through. However, don't make the child feel bad like it's their responsibility to do something when their only responsibility is to be a child, and for you to give them the tools necessary so that they can continue to have that childlike innocence. However, have an understanding of how nature and how this world works and the nature of their bodies. We don't even want to teach the children about sex and the nature of their bodies, but we want to sit there and tell them about jobs. Really? We make them think the natural thing, which is having sex, is bad, but going out and working a job is normal. That is really fucked up, y'all. That's really, really fucked up. And we need to come back and we need to evaluate ourselves and make sure we're not repeating the same things that our parents were taught, because they only did what they were taught. It's time for something new. And I'll get back into that in the end of this video, what ushered in the new this year. All right. In the new cycle this year. All right. So I'm gonna bring it down some, because I got really passionate, because I'm really, really passionate about children. Children are, I know in my soul's purpose that I will definitely be around a lot of children, because I feel them. I see them. I get them. And I am still a child at heart. Honestly, our true essence is a child at heart. So, anywho's. Now, like I said, we actually become true adults at about the age of 28, 29. And the reason why that age is significant is because Saturn has made a complete orbit around the sun. Okay? And that's from the time that we were born. So this is a crucial period, and it's referred to as the Saturn return. Okay? The return of Satan. Anywho, so at that time, you're really considered to be an adult because Saturn has made that full cycle from your time of birth. Now, the Kabbalah, we're going to get into that. Move on from Saturn and move into the Kabbalah. If you don't know what the Kabbalah is, it's a Judaic tradition, which, however, it actually originated in ancient Babylon. Okay, and a lot of people think of Babylon like they call America Babylon and the West Babylon and so on and so forth. However, Babylon was an ancient melanated civilization, and we know that the melanated civilizations are the beginning of everything, because in the beginning there were melanated bodysuits all over this planet. And as the time went on in this realm, we started to get lighter melanated beings on this planet. So the beginnings of math and science, we know all of that we should know that at this time, since most of us have been awake. And I really shouldn't say that, because some people are just waking up. If you don't know, melanated beings were the first humans on this planet, starting with the melanated female, who was the mother of creation on this physical realm. And so a lot of people call the melanated woman God, and you'll see that a lot of people post that and things like that. That's where the information is coming from. So Babylon, if you can do some research on it and everything. I think it's Tiamat is how it's pronounced, one of the deities, and you'll just see how each ancient civilization had a particular deity, and that deity actually relates to the celestial beings in the skies, like the sun and the moon, and the cosmic mother, the womb of the universe, and the Sirius galaxy, and just all those things and how they play a part into it. And also, of course, the 12 houses of the zodiac. And so you just see all of those things come out in allegory like the Bible. However, it's actually talking about the celestial beings in the sky. So anywho's, the Kabbalah utilizes the tree of life, and it starts from Malkuth. Malkuth being the beginning life cycle or the birth, to the, some people call it Keter or Qatar, which is the ending life cycle or death. And they use that to define the 7-year cycles of life. All right. And getting into the chakras. Oh, before I get into the chakras, the cycles, I also wanted to note, which I did kind of bring up when I said the 12 houses of the zodiac. The cycles are also parallel to our astrological houses, and that's from 1 through 12, which I'll get into when I start breaking that down. Basically, which signs governs each house, and that starts with Aries. We know that Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which is also the beginning of the true beginning of the year, because that is when spring is ushered in, and spring is when everything starts to grow, is when the ground is most fertile, and we start to plant things, and it just signifies the birth, the new birth of Earth, the mother earth. And winter signifies the death, because, you know, leaves have fallen off the trees. It's cold in North America, or in the northern hemisphere. And so yeah, and a lot of vegetation is not growing, but in spring is when things start to grow. That's when you start planting. A lot of people start planting seeds and things like that, and you see flowers blooming, and then the trees and all of that. So anywho, so it governs, like I said, the signs govern each house, and it starts with Aries, which is house number 1. Taurus governs house number 2, and Gemini governs house number 3, and so on and so forth. All right, so you just, like I said, you start from Aries, and it goes all the way to Pisces. Okay, so the chakras are also related to these houses in 7-year time frames, starting over to cycle 1 at age number 50. So we have, and we all, and what, let me break that down before I go into the next part. So basically what that means is, starting from the root chakra, it dictates or influences, I like the word influences. It influences a particular age group. The sacral chakra influences a particular age group, and so on and so forth. And like I said, I'll get into that a little bit further down. So we have one dominant chakra for each cycle. Every 7-year cycle begins with fear, the root chakra, and every cycle ends with spirituality, the crown chakra. Each year life is influenced by the dominant chakra of that cycle, plus your age. And I'm going to talk about that more as well. Think about it like this. So like I said, each chakra has a particular age group that it influences. All right. And not only, so that's the dominant chakra. Then there's a secondary chakra that that will have influence based upon what age you are at the time as well. All right, so after completing a 7-year cycle, we enter the first stage of our 2nd year cycle. This is our crisis year. And since the first year of a new cycle is under the influence of the root chakra, which is not just fear, however, it does carry the emotion of fear. So now I'm going to do a breakdown of what each chakra represents. So the root chakra, fear; sacral chakra, feelings; solar plexus, proactivity. Now the root chakra is not just fear, so I'm going to say fear/security. The sacral chakra, feelings; the solar plexus, proactivity; the heart chakra, harmony; the throat chakra, philosophy; the third eye chakra, wisdom; and then the crown chakra, spirituality. Now, so your first 7 years are, now we're going to get into which chakra and, well, which sign and which chakra influences or governs or influences an age group. So your first 7 years is governed by Aries, and those are considered ages 0 through 7, which is, some say 1 through 7. The reason why I start at 0 is because there is 9 months or 290 days if a child goes full term that you are in your mother's womb. That still counts, because You are literally being baked in the oven with all of your mom's emotions and things like that. And so the reason why I said fear / security is because whatever your mom was going through during that pregnancy, you will get those ingredients. Those ingredients will be added to you. And so that's why I always say to my lovely women, it is very vital that you protect your energy and you protect your emotions during the time that you are pregnant with your seed. And the reason being, your star seed feels everything that you're going through, so you are transferring that energy to your child. Remember, energy doesn't die; it's transferred, or it can be transmuted. So if you're not transmuting that energy, you're transferring it over to your child, and they're feeling everything you feel because they are inside of you, they are a part of you, they are connected to you. All right, so let me get back into it. So like I said, it's governed by your first house. So it's the first 7 years governed by the first house, which is Aries. And Aries represents our ascension into this plane, and Aries governs our first 7 years of life, okay? Which is birth and initiation. So we are energetically attached to our physical mother at this during this age group, and our spiritual mother, Earth, okay? We are learning our surroundings and developing our personalities. We begin physical school at about the age of 5, and now, you know, they've actually started it earlier because they have pre-K and everything, and then some children go to daycare, and they start at the beginning because we have gotten further and further fucking away from a mother being able to be a mother to her child. And that's why the mother don't have time to mother and nurture her child, which is what those ages are crucial for. They need the nurturing of a mother. Okay, and the way that this physical matrix is set up, this material world is set up, is to make sure that the child doesn't get the nourishment they're supposed to get from their mother. So that's why they have all this bullshit stuff on TV and all these other outside influences, instead of the child getting what they really, really need, which is the love of their mother and the guidance and nurturing of their mother. All right. Where was I? Yeah, so we begin physical school. Hence, if you think of elementary school, I like to call elements of Aries, and it just signifies that's the beginning of our schooling in the spiritual and the physical, as above so below. So just like it's the beginning of our life and our school and our schooling on this planet Earth, it also is the beginning of physical school in this physical realm. So we are also influenced by the root chakra. So the first 7 years is influenced by the root chakra as well, which is characteristics of life force energy. So it's the beginning of the life force energy coming into this physical suit. It's connection to Earth and this material world, because we're learning about everything in this material world, and at this point we're supposed to be learning how we're connected to everything in this material world. And it's stability and new beginnings, because you're starting anew in this bodysuit. You are reincarnated into this bodysuit. All right, and like I said, it's stability and it's security as well. That's why I said it's not just fear, it's also when you're supposed to gain some sense of security, because you are one, being carried in your mother, so you're supposed to feel secure within her. That's why her emotions are very important and vital. And then when you come out into this world, you should have that security of your mother cradling you and loving on you. And that's why it's very important that those first 7 years really should be spent so much with the mother and the father, and that's why I had to bring the father in too, and the mother and the father, you know, getting to know them and them getting to know their child. All right, so I'm only gonna do this age by age breakdown for the first 7 years, because otherwise I'll be doing this video for fucking 2 hours. And excuse me for all my cursing, for people who don't like curse words, even though curse words to me are actually when people are speaking curses on you. Somebody saying fuck is really like letting out some type of aggression or whatever, which I'm letting out a little bit of this Aries energy, because yeah, like I said, I get really passionate about children, and that's what made me really want to share this video. Not only for, you know, me to help myself through growing through growing so that I can glow up into my divine purpose. It's also for you guys to grow and glow up in your divine purpose, and to make yourselves, you know, better at parenting your children, because we know that parenting is not fucking easy. It's not. You know, I do not have any children. However, I have sisters who have children, and when I was very young, my sister had the first grandchild, and I remember her sleeping in the bed with me, and because my sister worked at night, and I took on a role as second mama, as the children, with my nieces and nephews would call me, because I love them. I love them just that much, like they're my own. And I never saw a separation of them not being a part of me because they're my sisters. You know, that was always my thought process when it came to family. So I did a whole lot for those children. The first two boys, shit, I would buy them all kind of clothes and make them dress like they were twins, because they were born like so close to one another, like within a 3-week period of one another. But anywho's, I won't get into all of that. So now we're gonna start with year one. So year one, remember when I talked about that each 7-year cycle is influenced by the dominant chakra plus the secondary chakra. So the dominant chakra in the first 7-year cycle is root chakra. So when you're 1 years old, that means that the root chakra, being your first chakra, is also associated with it. So then that's the fear plus fear. Root chakra of it being the first 7-year cycle, plus being 1 representing the root chakra. And so at that stage, you are in the survival being influenced by survival. So the 1-year-old child is motivated by the root chakra in both dimensions. Since the root chakra is primarily the survival instinct chakra, these little people are motivated by fear, and their only goal at this age is to simply survive. Now, I won't say that all children are motivated by fear, because to be honest, children be the most outgoing, courageous beings on this plane, because they don't know that fire burns them. They don't remember that shit. You just reincarnated. You don't recall that. You like, okay, I'm ready to play now. However, based upon it being the spiritual way to look at it, is saying that you are residing more in the root chakra. You're being more influenced more by the root chakra at that age, because of the 7-year cycle and because of the age you are. Now, at the age of 2, it's going to be fear plus feelings. Again, it's still in the 7-year cycle. Plus the number 2 represents the sacral chakra. So that's where the feelings comes from. So by age 2, feelings begin to emerge in the child. The child begins to have preferences about what they do and don't want to do. Okay? And that's why I call it the terrible twos, because a child is tapping into that emotion, and they're starting to gain a little bit of their own personality. They kind of see the things that they don't fucking like, and again, children actually go by their feelings. So whatever they feel, that means they're more in touch with their true essence, because they're not caught up in what they think. They're more in tune with their feelings. Now, 3 years is fear plus proactivity. That's root plus your solar plexus. So at age 3, the child begins his active study of the world. They begin to explore the world around them and questioning, what is this? So that's when they're asking you a lot of questions. Why? What is this for? So on and so forth. They kind of want to go out like Slater the cat. He loves to go outdoors every single day and explore. Sunday, he actually tried to bring me a baby squirrel. A baby squirrel, y'all. And the baby squirrel was still alive. I was like, no, Slater, don't bring that in here. However, his teeth are sharp on the side like little fangs, and so he wound up killing the baby squirrel, and I had to take a shovel and go put the baby squirrel out back into the earth. And obviously another animal found the remains of that baby squirrel, because the baby squirrel is just the physical shell. However, the life that was in there, the animation that was in there, the life force that was in there had already, transitioned and went back into the ether, so it was no more here. But yeah, so that's what your 3-year-olds are doing. Not saying that they're trying to kill things, but they do want to, that's when they want to pet animals and stuff. If you did not have a fear, so let's say that the mother has a fear of dogs. You've encoded that fear of dogs into your child, so now your child is afraid to touch his dog, most likely, because maybe you had a bad experience in your childhood, where a dog bit you, so now you have a fear, and then you've transitioned this over to your child if you didn't overcome that fear, right? But if your child doesn't, you know, have that in their DNA to have a fear of dogs, they literally trying to pet and touch a dog's tail and do all these kind of things and go out and touch plants and run. That's when they running everywhere and you trying to catch them. Like, okay, don't do this, don't do that, don't touch this, don't put, you know, just all kind of stuff. All right. 4 years, fear plus harmony. So root plus heart. Here the child begins to find joy of communication with people around them. The child becomes more sociable. At age 4, the body of the child also becomes more stabilized. So, at this age, the child is able to communicate better in their new language, their new tongue is what I like to call it. Because when a child comes out, they are speaking more of their natural tongue, which we kind of make light of it, and just because we have lost our understanding of it, because we lost our native tongue when we came into wherever we came, in whatever country you were born into, Jamaica, America, Ghana, Japan, Australia, wherever you were born into, and then you started to adopt the tongue of the land that you grew up on, then you lose your native tongue, which if you listen to a baby, no matter where they come from, to me they all pretty much sound similar. They sound more similar than we do in these different parts of the world that we're in. So that's why they start to communicate more to people around them. It's because they've actually adopted the new language more better now. They're able to converse better with it because they know their vocabulary starts to grow a little, grow more and everything. And so it's not the broken up sentences that you start hearing at the ages of 2 and 3. The children are speaking more fluently. Even though nowadays children are so much quicker now because we know the times are changing. And not only that, people have reincarnated so many damn times that they're picking up on this shit quicker because they've been there and done that so many times, you know? All right. And as far as the body of the child becoming more stabilized, it's because now they've been walking for a little while. They've gotten their balance and their footing more. So they're able to run around and just do all kind of things at this point. Piccolo, not at this time, sweetie. Now, 5 years. 5 years is fear plus philosophy. So root plus throat. All right. So by age 5, this little person begins his attempt to understand the world. This is also usually the beginning of education for the child. That's why they throw them in school, because that is the time of the throat chakra. This is the time that the child wants to really like soak up and learn a lot about the world that they're in. And what's happened is that we have allowed the fake ass school systems, the fake ass educational systems, to start to teach our child about the world when that is our job to do so. It's not the education systems to do so. And that's why our children don't know anything. That's why they really don't know who they are. And that's why we are dealing and living in the world that we're living in at this very moment. Okay. 6 years is fear plus wisdom. So root plus the third eye chakra. All right. So at age 6, the child will, for the first time, go through life experiences and attempt to transfer their knowledge to others. So that's when children are in school and they be like, my mama said. So then they, trying to tell you, nope, my mama told me differently. So what you're saying is wrong. And so they're trying to educate children on what they've learned from their life, a little bit of life experiences so far on this plane in their current vehicle. And so it's also why children will even if they like learn something on TV or whatever, they'll start talking to their friend and try to explain to them about whatever that TV show is and things like that. That's also when you be like, oh, they like a little grown person. At the age of 6, a lot of times you start seeing that because they develop some type of wisdom. They've tapped into their wisdom. Okay. 7 years is fear plus spirituality. So root plus the crown chakra. here, at this age, the 7-year-old experiences their first craving for the mysterious and the unknown nature of world. So that's the age where they might start asking you about what is death, and where do people go when they die, and they start asking you questions really more on the unknown side of the realm. Okay, and a lot of times people tend to like shy away from this. They don't want to tell their child this. They're like, oh, they're too young, I don't want to scare them, I don't want to put fear into them. What you have to understand is, what you don't tell them is when they normally form their own opinion of it, or they'll go out somewhere else and they'll learn from other people, and then it won't be incorrect information, or it'll be half-assed information, and then the child may take that as the gospel. So then your child is going around misinformed, and then they're taking that on to the next 7-year cycle of their life, and so on. And it could be something, because again, these are the most informative parts of the development of the human. And so you want to make sure that you are guiding your child, not making them do things, but guiding them into the right directions. That is the job of a parent during a child's childhood, to guide them so that they can find their own path through it, you know. So that's why it's very important that you play a significant part in the first 7 years, because that's when they need you and want you the most. And I'm going to talk about that want. Now going into the second cycle, which is ages 8 through 14, which is governed by Taurus, the bull. Okay, so which is, when you think of bull, you think of someone being stubborn, right? So at this point, we begin to identify more with our father and the external world. We go out to learn and to imitate others. That's when your children start mocking you and stuff like that. So you say something and they repeating it back, trying to sound like you, or they may be making fun of you with their siblings or their friends or whatever like that, or trying to sound like you. People may hear them having conversations, be like, oh my God, that's the spitting image of you. Because this is the age when they really start to imitate their parents, because that's when that learned behavior has started to kick in more. All right. So we begin to establish our ego base, which is Taurus, relating to our own peer group. We begin middle school after age 10, and so we also start puberty during this time as well, like 12 or 13 years of age, which we're going to get into the sacral chakra now. So we are influenced by the sacral chakra during the 2nd year cycle, which is where the reproductive organs are located, and also our adrenal glands. So, you know, you may start to just go through, like, that's when you start going through like acne and everything, because your endocrine glands are probably overproducing. And then if you're eating the wrong things, like if your child is eating pizza, cheese, meat, and all those things like that, then it's going to give them a bad body smell and body odor, which we don't talk to our children about that. My parents didn't talk to me about that. So yeah, this is that time when they're starting to feel awkward and things, because your body is changing again, because it's linked to your sacral chakra. And then all of this makes a whole lot more sense when you break it down in this manner. And then, you know, that way you can prepare yourself to start having these conversations with your children. And if you have been having conversations with your children from the beginning, this won't even be an embarrassing conversation for either party, for either one of you, because they'll be like, my parents talk to me about everything and they explain things to me. So I don't feel like, you know, this is something that's taboo. This is just a part of nature, because you teach your child that this is all a part of nature. A part of nature. Okay. The sacral chakra influences our sensuality, our joy, our sexuality, and exploring our creativity and boundaries. This is where your creativity comes from. This is, you'll notice that your child starts to become more into art or singing or dancing. This is a lot of at the age, a lot of times beginning at the age of 8, where they say, oh, I want to do this. They may want to play football, which I'm speaking of the real football, like soccer is where my head went with that. Or whatever. They may want to learn how to play the piano. This is the age where you'll see them really start to get interested in things. And that reason being is because we begin to feel like we want to be our own person without the influence of our parents. We want to start to figure out who we are and be our own little, people on this planet and find our own little place. So the third cycle is ages 15 through 21, which is governed by Gemini. Now, Gemini, of course, represents the twins, and it awakens, it says it awakens puberty, so where 8 through 14 is the start of puberty, 15 through 21 awakens puberty and discovery of our sexual urges. So through adolescent, you experience the mood swings, dark and light, which I call the twins, your darkness and your lightness, okay? Or your dark side and your light side, which is your yin and your yang. We also battle between childlike emotions and feelings of adulthood. We begin to feel we are ready to leave the nest and embark on our own adventure. The high school years end our 12-year schooling, and we venture off to university or the work field or workforce. We are influenced by our solar plexus, which controls our self-confidence, development of our personality and feelings, wisdom, expansion, and limitless possibilities. Also, I put a note on here because the third cycle begins at the age of 15. Mesoamerican culture, a girl celebrates her quinceañera or coming of age party. I also want to make a note that, again, remember, as I'm going through these cycles, Saturn is coming back in every 7 years. So when I ended the sacral the second cycle was at age of 14, Saturn had come back in. So that represents, when you think about like the changes of your body and things like that, and becoming starting your puberty and everything during the second time Saturn comes into your lifeline or your life cycle. So fourth cycle is ages 22 through 28, and is governed by Cancer. So and if you think about it too, it correlates to, like I said, the 12 houses that we go through. And Cancer is when we think of Cancer, it relates to our fourth house of home and family. So we start to seek our own home or our own house and our own family, and we try to navigate the split between our conditioned self, which is what we were brought up in and taught, and our true self. And that's why you have a lot of people be like, oh, I'm not going to raise my children the way my parents raised me, and so on and so forth, because you're literally attempting to find your true self and who you truly are, and the way that you want to govern your own household and raise your own children. And you may not want to be the type of woman that your mother was in her relationship with your father or other men, or the way your father was in his relationship with your mother or other women. All right, so at the end of this cycle, with the Saturn return at 28 or 29 years, our unconscious patterns come to a head. So remember, Saturn cycles around the sun every 29.4 years about. So at this time, ending this cycle, Saturn is about to come back into our horizon. And at that point, a lot of things that were unconscious starts to come back up. The same things reappear, and this is the time for us to really correct it, because this is a true time when we're coming into our adulthood. So there is some constructive movement and evaluation towards being who we really are. This tends to be a decisive time, and many of us settle into a marriage, a profession, or some formative crisis. This cycle is linked to the heart chakra, with the attributes of love, compassion, selflessness, development of healing skills in self and others, working to heal the earth, which are attributes of a mother, which represents your fourth house. Now the fifth cycle, ages 29 through 35, is governed by Leo, which develops our qualifications, adult authority, and responsibility, the learning curve of authority. This matures us from the codependent lion or lion cub towards interdependent adult relationships. Most people are also more settled in adulthood and feel more wise and knowledgeable due to the experience of their 20s, and also better at expressing themselves. This cycle is linked to the throat chakra, and that's why for better at expressing ourselves, which have the attributes of communication, self-expression, inspiration, independence, openness to higher development, and speaking with wisdom. Now, the sixth cycle is ages 36 through 42, which is governed by Virgo the Virgin. And this is about our life's operation. And that makes a whole lot of sense because we know Virgo is about the details and organization. So you start asking the questions, what am I really meant to be doing? Am I to be pushed around by fate? Or to discover, am I ever going to discover my destiny? This period covers our Uranus opposition. Uranus takes 84 years to orbit the sun. And as we near 40, which I'll be 40 this year, we are almost halfway around. So our creative and physical powers start to blossom. At their peak, we seize or lose our vocation. For some of us, these very powerful feelings generate another 7-year itch. We learn to navigate our life better because we've gained better insight into ourselves. This cycle is linked to the third eye chakra with the attributes of realization of inner senses such as clairvoyance and intuition, responsibility, and deepening life experiences. Okay, so now we're going to get into the seventh cycle, which is ages 43 through 49. And that's governed by Libra, which is balance. And if you think about it, that truly is when you're getting into that's when you're getting in through being halfway through the physical life in the 12-year house cycle. So we seek a greater sense of balance, and the reason why we seek balance again is it's governed by Libra, and awareness of karma, life's cause and effect, because again we're in the middle of the 12-house cycle. By age 49, the midlife crisis starts to come into place. So stop, Piccolo. So we are vulnerable again. Women start to develop more testosterone, the male hormone, and men more estrogen, the female hormone. Because your body is attempting to balance. Think about it like this. Your body is attempting to balance itself out because you are in the middle of your full 12 house cycle. Okay. Now we start to question if we made the right decisions in our life. If we're living in our lower chakras, you may start to think buying an expensive toy will help you with feelings of wasted years. This cycle is linked to the crown chakra, which attributes are time of inner work, unity, enlightenment, inner spiritual transition, contemplation, and meditation. This is actually the time that if you are living in your higher chakras, where you should be totally into spirituality and enlightenment. The eighth cycle, ages 50 through 56, which is governed by Scorpio, is as powerful as puberty. A parent may die and we start to become aware of our own mortality. Sex, death, and transformation represents this time. Some unavoidable and crucial issues may tip us into the deep end, as this period covers the Saturn return in our life cycle. And Saturn is the wounded healer. It is actually, if you look at Google Greek mythology, you can get more information on that. However, I did talk a little bit about that in one of my videos when I was talking about, I think it was New Moon, and it's one of my August videos. So the name of it right now is not coming to me. However, yeah. So many hardworking persons face redundancy. So at this age, you feel like you've been doing the same shit over and over and over, and most likely you have, because you haven't switched it up. You've been playing it safe. So growth is supposed to be inward at this point. At ages 56 through 57, our second Saturn return begins to take shape. So we start back over the root chakra. So that means that we've went through all 7 chakras, and so once you hit the 8th cycle, you start back at the root chakra and working your way back up. However, even though you start back at the root chakra, you should still be at a whole nother level. You don't start back where you were through the ages 0 through 7. You've had all this life experience come into place, so it's at a higher level of the root chakra. Now, the ninth cycle, ages 57 through 63, which are governed by Sagittarius, possibly dealing with the second Saturn return as well, because again, this it begins at age group 57, or at age 57. Wisdom and understanding, which is associated with Sagittarius, expand into awareness of our physical limitations. This is the age where people start feeling like they're old. However, you have people feeling like they old before this life cycle and the time we're living in now, because people don't eat properly. People do not, their diet does not include a long and prosperous and healthy life. People eat for the now. They don't eat to excuse me, to keep their bodies physically fit. They eat based upon what they want to eat. And so they eat like they don't care if they have a tomorrow or if they have a future, to be honest. Now, we have a human priority to conserve our energy at this point, to simplify and unburden ourselves. So you see a lot of older people start to downsize. So they may have this big house because they had children, and all their children are grown now. They have grandchildren and stuff probably at this point, especially in the melanated communities. So it's like, why do you have all this space? Let me go ahead and downsize and get something smaller. Yeah. Now, in this ninth cycle, we need to perceive our life holistically. We examine our physical security and prepare for old age. The doors open for some souls to travel forth as the family has grown up or left the home. If we are awake, meaning we are conscious, we put into practice our philosophy of life, and then we're back to our sacral chakra. So if somebody, a lot of our parents and some people's and grandparents, for some, are at this point in life is when they're starting to prepare to for old age. People start retiring, if you think about it, during this age, and that's because they passed the second cycle of the root chakra, and now they're in the sacral chakra. So they should have some type of security foundation set. They're getting their pensions and things at the age of 63. Some people are retiring at the end of their 50s, but most people, if you look at it nowadays, even when they retire from their job that they've been working their whole damn life, they are now the greeters at Walmart. You know what I'm saying? They are now working in bathrooms as bathroom attendants at the club and shit. They're doing things they have no business fucking having to do at this point, because this is the time where they should be getting into like their golden ages. They should be in the golden ages of life. Like, what the hell? But again, it just shows how we have totally lost sight. So that's why. Now, our 10th cycle, ages 64 through 70, which is governed by Capricorn, it's like a new birth. So we reevaluate and sum up our life's experiences. Some become better managers of their time and also better managers of themselves. So some are grandparents or great-grandparents, and they're rediscovering their youth through their grandchildren or great-grandchildren. Some people are, which I see now a lot, are pretty much like on death's door, on transition's door, because they are very sickly and they're not getting around like they should be getting around. Others are out, seeing the world and traveling because they've retired, and now they want to travel because they waited till the 10th cycle of life, which they only have 2 more house cycles left if they have not taken care of their bodies to live this life. So that might be 14 years, so anywho's. The 11th cycle is ages 71 through 77, and that's governed by Aquarius, which as physical vitality begins to decline, a need for human fellowship expands. So that's when you get people going to bingo and stuff like that, because they need to be surrounded by other people, because they don't want to be alone, because when they're in their thoughts, all they think about is their physical ailments, and that they feel like they're old, and that they have less life ahead of them than they have they have less life ahead of them, so, and more behind them. So at this point they are settling into feeling like they are old, and they also may further have further wisdom and understanding. And at this point, they should have further wisdom and understanding, because they're on the 11th cycle of this of the astrology wheel, or of their house wheel. We may feel a need to connect more with family as well. And this also is influenced by the heart chakra. So we're back at the second tier of the heart chakra at this point. Now, the 12th cycle, ages 78 through 84, are governed by Pisces. And we know that Pisces actually signifies death or reincarnation, or the end of the cycle. It's the end of the 12-wheel cycle. So at this point, you start asking the questions: where will I put my head down to die? How do I complete my journey of return? Some may start to mentally prepare for death and attempt to gain peace. Some may have even already bought plots and stuff for themselves to be buried. You know, people have their wills and they've shown their children and things where that is. They're starting to get their affairs in order and things of that nature, if they're planning ahead. Yeah, so they're pretty much just calling it a wrap and an end to, and I'm not trying to say this like, you know, it's a funny thing, but it's because I know that death isn't real. It's an illusion. A person who's living their lower chakras actually thinks it's real, because they do not recall. The longer you live in this existence and you haven't woken up, the harder it is for you to wake up. And most people, they only start to get some glimpse of it is when they literally are between these realms. They're between the physical and the spiritual. So the veil is starting to thin. So they might be laying on their quote unquote deathbed, and they start to see, and feel peace about it and gain a sense of peace, because they realize shit, ain't no such thing as it, you know. Or they might start to feel like this is it's way more peaceful than where I am right now. So while people are tearing up and crying about this person transitioning, they're really only going to be coming back in this bitch because they didn't get out of the first 3 chakras. So they're going to be reincarnating. You know what I'm saying? When in our ancient civilizations, our ancestors celebrated the transition, because had you prepared and had you lived your life accordingly, and known how the astrological houses work, how the planets influence your life, then you wouldn't be looking at it that way. You would have the knowledge that you needed, and you would have achieved and completed all the lessons and the levels that you needed, so that you are good transitioning. And now you can make a decision whether or not you want to come back to this physical plane. And if you do, you'll know exactly what you plan on doing, basically, because, you know, we do our soul contract. So you have mapped all of this out, chosen your conscious parents, so they know you come out the bat being prepared, because your parents are consciously aware and enlightened. So you are able to choose parents who are enlightened, and so you speed through this thing, and you start serving your purpose probably at the age of 5 years old. Anywho's, where was I on this? Because I actually added some other things. Yeah, so some may start to mentally prepare for death and attempt to gain some peace, like I said. Now, at age 84, which is actually the age of the end of the cycle, that's the end of the last cycle, or the 12th cycle, Uranus has made its orbit around the sun. And so I put a note, that 8 plus 4 equals 12, representing the 12 houses that you have passed through during your life cycle. All right, Aries through Pisces. This is why in some cultures, 84 years old, when the 12th cycle culminates, is seen as a complete life. All right, and it goes back to your throat chakra, all right, which is philosophy. Now, anything exceeding the 84 years would continue on with the other 7-year cycles. However, anything exceeding that is, like I said, is exceeding that whole 12-year cycle, because that's how it's broken up in Earth years. 84 years, which is Uranus, the influence of Uranus going around the sun. And so I put a note in here, if you didn't know, Uranus entered a new era on May the 16th when it entered Taurus for the first time since 1934 on the new moon. So This means that Uranus entered a new 84-year cycle this year in May in 2018. And that says a lot, guys. That just goes to show you how the planets are lining up in the way that they're supposed to line up. Because that is actually probably why a lot of people are transitioning and passing on. Because Uranus is a trailblazer, and Uranus asks us to go into the unknown, not to fear the unknown, but run into the unknown and create a new lane. And it energizes us so we can start creating new finances from new dimensions, new different ways of doing it. So that's why you see a lot of people being entrepreneurs. You see a lot of people starting YouTube channels. You just see a lot of people doing things differently than our parents before us, and using a lot of the new technology to do so, but also creating new things, even though there's nothing new under the sun, but creating new ways of doing things and making their own way and making money off of it. Because the way that the true thing that we're supposed to gain in this whole purpose of being here, not only to release and resolve the things that we've been carrying, the baggage we've been carrying with us from past lives, but it's also fulfilling the desires that we wanted to fulfill on this physical plane. And if you're not doing that, you need to start doing it now, because if you don't, you will continue to come back here to do so, right? So like I said, I knew this was going to be a lengthier video. However, I definitely wanted to make sure that I shared this with you guys, because this is an aid to help you in knowing what to expect during those cycles. And like I said, even though I only broke down the first 7 years, with the dominant chakra and the secondary chakra, and how you can utilize that to help aid your child and guide your child better through those formidable years, you can still use that same math, because all this is math, guys. This is simple math, and it's relating those numbers to your chakras and to your houses. And if you do research on your house and you pull your child's natal chart, which I've talked about before, and you know your child's sun sign, moon sign, and you also know their ascended house, you have a very good idea of what your child's personality is. So that teaches you and helps you on the best way to parent your child based upon their blueprint. Okay, because that blueprint has their personalities and traits and things that you should expect to see. And most of the time, and you will look at it and be like, to a T, this is who your child is in a lot of aspects. If they're very young, it prepares you to know what to expect from that child. So you can know certain things that may work for one child, it won't work for this child. That's why when I was working in corporate America and I would do training classes, I got that as a teacher, everybody doesn't learn the same. So you have to pay attention that's a mother's job, to pay attention to your child and see what works and what doesn't work. It's just like one child may like this type of food, another child don't like this type of food. Their taste buds are different. It's the same thing with their personalities. Their personalities are different. They operate differently. So when you know each specific child, you can tailor your parenting style to each child. However, I mean, they're not saying that you won't do common things, like you won't, if you are living a vegan, on a vegan diet, a plant-based diet, yeah, your children are still going to eat vegan food. You're not going to incorporate meat. However, you might cook something different. Like this child may like eggplant lasagna, and then this child may want a veggie pizza or whatever. So you just find different ways to balance and things, so that, because one child may not like eggplant. You see what I'm saying? So anywho's, I know that this knowledge is going to be beneficial to you guys, because it was definitely very beneficial to me, and I learned a lot. Because like I said, I've been reading so much information and getting into my walking on my divine purpose and my soul purpose, which is teaching me about myself, and also in turn it allows me to teach you guys or share information so you can learn more about yourselves as well, or teach you how to learn more about yourselves. So I definitely appreciate you guys for watching this longer video, and for liking the video, as well as sharing through the comments anything that you feel can also, add to the subject. and for following me on my Instagram page, Knowledge Butterfly, for also following me on my Facebook page for Knowledge Butterfly, which is under Empress Rostar. And then also, guys, thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, and just for sending me your positive energy and your love out into the ether. As I always, I'm going to send you love right back, guys. I love you so much. Peace.